Women belong to the kitchen. That's their place, and that's exactly where they should be. Thank you so much for that reaction. I can already see a few people here shifting in their seats, and it sounds very sexist, sounds very offensive. I understand that. Let me change this a little bit. Men belong to the office. That's their place, and that's where they should be. Sounds sexist again, but doesn't really sound that offensive, right? Why? Because we associate a lot of power and importance with money, and that's a sad reality of our lives, that money has been one of the biggest factors for gender equality for all these years. Let me clarify, I of course do not subscribe to the idea of women going to the kitchen or men going to the office. To each their own personal choice. I completely respect that. My name is Lokesh. I work with City 1016. I'm a radio presenter. I do a bunch of other things, but I identify myself as one of the biggest feminists. A word that kind of petrified me for all these years. You know, there was a time my friends would introduce me, he's such a feminist, and I would be like, no, I'm not a feminist. I'm an egalitarian. I believe in gender equality. That's it. If you believe in gender equality, you are a feminist. If you don't believe in gender equality, then you are a sad human being. But to understand the negative baggage with feminism, you know, feminism has become a very negative word of late. We need to understand why. There are a few things that I would like to talk about. Privilege, insecurity that leads to feminazi. Let me elaborate. I was in Spain a couple of months ago, and Europeans are very friendly, hospitable people. But it so happened that every time I walked into a cafe or a restaurant or a store, I was very well attended, but at the same time, if I walked into a store with a white man or a white woman or a white family, slowly and gradually the focus would shift from me to the white person. It happened once, twice, multiple times. I met this French girl in a cafe. We started talking about it. I was telling her about the treatment I was getting in Spain. And she says, no, it doesn't really happen like that. You know, Europeans are not racist. Maybe you're overthinking and overanalyzing. And I kind of understood, just because she has the privilege of color, she doesn't see it. And at that point in time, it made me understand, just because I have the privilege of gender, maybe I don't see it. There must be so many times I've walked into a restaurant with my mother, my sister, my friend, and they were completely ignored and the focus was on me, but it didn't occur to me because I was the privileged one. You know, there's a very interesting sociologist, a famous sociologist in America called Michael Kimmel, and he, in one of his TED Talks, said something really interesting. So they were having a discussion in their college, and they were discussing feminism, and they were discussing what is the first thing that you see when you see yourself in the mirror every morning. The white woman said, I see a woman. The black woman said, I see a black woman. And Michael Kimmel was completely taken aback because he sees only a human being in the mirror. And then it occurred to him that just because the white woman has the privilege of color, she doesn't see it. He has the privilege of color and gender, he doesn't see it. Privilege is invisible to people who have them. And then that gives us a sense of entitlement. I think men behave as if we are the most entitled people in the world. This friend of mine is a social media influencer. I have to tell you this story. Very, very interesting. So he was pitching himself to a client, to a brand. He was facing some tough competition, especially from two very specific women. He comes to me and says, dude, there's so much of competition in the market. I just hope that I don't lose my brand to these women. Don't lose my brand to these women. This brand doesn't belong to you. And there's already this sense of entitlement that the brand is his even before bagging the deal. You know, when we are privileged, when we have that sense of entitlement is when we become insecure. I think men are extremely insecure people because suddenly our position has been challenged, right? We have to share our opportunities. We have to share our salaries with women. And what do? Since we cannot really have a reasonable argument, we say feminism, it's all rubbish. We equate feminism with feminazi. Feminism is about equality between two genders, about humanity. Feminazi is everything but humanity. There are so many people who tell me, feminists are a bunch of angry, bitter women, always men-hating. Yeah, that's right. Have you ever spared a thought why though? Because they have been oppressed for all these years. It's like if you come to me and slap me and hit me, I don't even have the right to be bitter about it. I can go on and on about feminism, but I will come to something very, very specific that a lot of people are thinking. A lot of my friends also tell me this, that, women are going to the office, you have a woman boss, your mom is working, your sister is working, what are you complaining about? Women are getting their share of opportunities, which is true. But within that space, let's understand the kind of misogyny and patriarchy that's so deep-rooted. My mother and I stay together in Dubai. I love to shop and I buy a lot of clothes, so does she. And she keeps donating these clothes to the janitor in the building, to the security guards. The other day we enter the building, the janitor just suddenly stands up looking at me saying, "Thank you, bhaiya." And I was like, I have no clue why he's thanking me. So I was like, "Why are you thanking me?" He says, "No, no, Auntie ji had given your clothes and her clothes to me and for my family." And I was like, maybe then you should thank my mother instead of thanking me. Just because he has identified the earning person in the family, suddenly his gratitude goes not from the person who is actually doing charity, but to the person who he knows where the money comes from. My colleague Malvika and I were hosting a concert, okay? Same opportunity, same time on stage, same payment as well, payment parity, thank you so much for that. After the concert got over, this organizer, who's a woman by the way, comes to both of us, gives us all great compliments and everything, small talks for a minute, gives me an envelope and goes. And we both are wondering, that's my money, but where is Malvika's money? We opened the envelope and it had my money and her money. She has given my money to me and her money to me as well. And I was like, that's the kind of patriarchy and misogyny that exists. I'll give you one more example. So this friend of mine was visiting a couple of years ago. She's a working woman. She wanted to buy some gold, and she tells me, want to go some gold shopping. I said, yeah, I know a couple of places which will give us some discount, so I'll take you. And she says, no, I have to discuss this with my husband. And so I was like, you earn your money, you want to buy gold, why do you need to discuss it with your husband? She says, no, as a couple, we take collective decisions. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And the next day, the husband says, we have to buy an LCD TV for our bedroom. So I was like, do you want to bounce it off with your wife? He says, no, that's not her department. Gold jewelry that she is going to wear, she needs to discuss with her husband. An LCD TV that they both will be watching in their bedroom is not her department, but his department. That's the kind of misogyny that we live, patriarchal world that we live in. I'm not going to take much of your time. I'm going to actually end it with 3 simple practical solutions how to empower women. First of all, stop diluting the movement called feminism. If it doesn't exist, if misogyny and patriarchy doesn't exist in your world, great, fabulous, superb. Drop me the pin. I'll come to your world and experience your world. But don't say that it doesn't exist in other people's lives. It's almost like people from Canada coming here and saying, oh, it snows there, it's freezing, it's cold, and we go, no, snow doesn't exist. What are you talking about? No, it doesn't exist. That's their reality, and this is our reality. Second, stop sliding in your agendas. I remember when Me Too campaign started, do you even realize, do we men even realize the kind of shame, the kind of guilt that surrounds abuse against women? They are finally finding some voice, some ground. It takes a lot of courage to just post those 2 words, hashtagging Me Too. And what do? We start our own parallel movement saying men too. Of course, abuse happens with men as well, but that's not the time to talk about it, right? Women are, there's a very thin line between empathizing with women and completely denying their movement. There are a lot of men who said Me Too as well, showing, yes, our support to the women, and we completely understand what you go through. And then there was this set of men who started Me Too campaigns saying, no, it doesn't really happen to you, it happens to us as well. Don't dilute it. Don't slide in your agendas. It's like me coming to you saying, I have cancer, and then you turn around and say, yeah, I had fever last night. You're making a big deal out of it. Don't do that. My last, some might find a little radical, but my last solution to this is share your salaries with the working woman in your life. And when I say the working woman in your life, I don't necessarily mean the person who goes out and works and earns her money. I'm talking about the women who work at home. Your mother, your wife, You can go out and work only because your women are taking care of your kids are safe. You can go out, you can exist only because the food that you eat is made by the woman at home, and that is 24/7, 365 days of work. My last bit is, when you're giving money to the woman in your life, do not give cash, because that is just a condescending way of saying, hey, that's my money and I'm sharing it with you. Open an account for her, transfer the money in her account, and you have no say as to how she spends that money. I do that with my mother. My mother has this very weird habit of spending money and buying gifts for people we don't even know from Adams, right? She goes to India and she wants to buy gifts for practically everyone. And I would complain, why are you spending so much of money? It's her money. She wants to burn it. She wants to buy gifts. It's her choice. I do not have any say in that. Let's empower our women financially so that the next time when a certain Lokesh comes on stage and begins his speech with women should be in the kitchen and that's their place and that's where they belong, nobody should feel uncomfortable, and it shouldn't really sound that offensive. Thank you so much.